A faint glow rises from the corner. Then a shape steps out of the haze. It's Snoop Dogg, standing in a quiet moment the world never sees. Not the loud king of the stage, not the smooth voice everyone knows. This is the man behind all of that calm face, tired eyes, and a weight he never talks about. His life has never moved in a straight line. Bright lights on one side, cold nights on the other, and a strange mix of both waiting for him at every turn. People think 54 years have given Snoop nothing but fame, power, and an untouchable image. But the real story speaks differently. There are moments he keeps buried, bonds that broke but still stayed in his heart, pain that followed him even when the crowd cheered his name. This story doesn't move from start to end. It jumps, it twists. Some days from his past still collide with the man he is now. Some wounds refuse to close even when life gives him new reasons to smile. And in the middle of all this, Snoop carries a truth that shakes everything we thought we knew about him. Stay with us, because the truth you're about to hear changes everything. Iconic persona setup. They called him the coolest man alive. A voice smoother than smoke. A presence that seemed effortless. A face everyone recognized before they even heard the name. On the surface, Calvin Broadus Snoop Dogg was the embodiment of calm charisma. But before the world fell in love with that laid-back, joking, unshakable persona, a boy was living in a place where calm was a rare commodity. Long Beach, California wasn't gentle. It was loud, chaotic, unpredictable, a place where sirens filled the night, arguments erupted outside windows, and friends disappeared long before they reached adulthood. Every day was a test, and every test came with its own kind of danger. Childhood for Calvin wasn't a slow, unfolding chapter, it was a sprint, forcing lessons and resilience far earlier than most kids ever needed. That iconic Snoop attitude, the charm and nonchalance the world adores, didn't emerge from simple confidence or comfort. It was forged in survival. Each day outside his home presented a new challenge, a new reality check. Every block held its own rules, its own threats, and every corner demanded alertness. While most children dreamed of trivial things like toys or schoolyard triumphs, Calvin and those around him dreamed of making it past their 20th birthday. Growing up here, toughness wasn't optional, it was survival. And yet, amidst the chaos, music became his anchor, a tool, a shield, a way to process the chaos around him. While others wielded fists, he wielded rhythm. While others ran from fear, he tried to write over it, to turn sound into strength. Even as a teenager, beneath the cool veneer, there was quiet sadness, a weight he rarely allowed anyone to see. That relaxed smile, those jokes, the ease with which he carried himself later in life, none of it was innate. It was learned. It was armor. Years of navigating streets that demanded caution, attention, and instinct carved a mask that the world would eventually fall in love with. And yet, inside that mask, the boy who had witnessed loss, violence, and unpredictability still lingered. Pain, though hidden, shaped every choice, every lyric, and every note that would eventually define his sound. When Dr. Dre first heard Snoop's voice, he didn't hear the hidden grief. He heard raw talent, potential, and presence. But for those who listened closely, pain lingered beneath the surface, softened, controlled, but unmistakable. It was there in the cadence, the pauses, the phrasing, the echoes of a childhood that had demanded resilience far beyond his years. Success came faster than he could process. One moment, he was in a small, cramped room recording on a cheap microphone, testing his voice and experimenting with sound. Next, he was thrust into multi-million-dollar studios, collaborating with legends and performing in front of audiences that adored him. Yet even in those bright, luxurious spaces, the shadows of his past never fully left him. The contrast between the world he came from and the world he had entered remained a constant presence. shaping both his art and his psyche. The fame, the accolades, the applause, they told everyone he had made it. But inside, Calvin often felt suspended between two realities. One foot in the light of success and admiration, one foot still trapped in the shadows of hardship and memory. His public persona became both a weapon and a necessity. The confident, untouchable Snoop Dogg that fans saw was a mask, a protective layer built over vulnerability, fear, and heartbreak. It became a symbol of survival, a way to navigate the relentless gaze of fame without cracking under scrutiny. Yet even the strongest mask grows heavy when worn too long. For decades, Snoop carried his, performing with effortless charm while carrying the silent burdens of trauma, memory, and unspoken pain. Behind the laughs, the swagger, and the viral charisma, there was a man confronting echoes of a past that the public could never fully see. Every hit song, every iconic performance, every public appearance required not only talent, but an immense emotional investment to maintain composure, authenticity, and energy. The weight of expectation, fame, and personal history layered upon each other, creating a pressure few could imagine. What the world saw was an icon, confident, bold, untouchable, a figure larger than life. But behind that icon, there was a man who had felt more deeply, hurt more quietly, and survived more intensely than anyone could imagine. The charm, the humor, the legendary coolness, all of it was born from necessity, built as armor over a childhood of chaos, survival, and early loss. And while fans celebrated the persona, the man beneath carried decades of hidden struggle, silently shaping the voice, the rhythm, and the legacy that would eventually redefine an entire generation of music. Deep Dive Dark Past. Every legend has an origin story, but Snoop Dogg's beginnings were not the typical tale of rising ambition or youthful exploration. There were no silver spoons, no sheltered corners to grow safely. Calvin Broadus, later known as Snoop Dogg, was shaped by a world that demanded vigilance before most kids even knew what responsibility meant. Long Beach, California, wasn't just a tough neighborhood. It was a crucible of danger, unpredictability, and early exposure to life's harshest lessons. The streets didn't ask permission, they imposed rules. Survival was not an option, it was a requirement. Every day carried risks that could leave a permanent mark on a child's mind and spirit. Every corner hid a story of violence, loss, and warning, and every sound of sirens or shouting was a reminder that childhood innocence had little room to breathe. Snoop saw things too early, things no child should ever witness. Friends disappeared from his life without explanation, swallowed by crime, addiction, or the kind of violence that became normalized in his neighborhood. He learned lessons about trust, loyalty, and danger that would take most years to understand. The simplicity of playground games was replaced with strategies for staying alive, reading situations, and predicting threats before they arrived. And yet, amidst all this, he discovered music. It wasn't a hobby, it was survival. Writing lyrics, experimenting with beats, and listening to rhythms became his lifeline, a way to process the chaos and channel fear into something tangible. Music was oxygen, a force that kept him grounded when the world seemed determined to drag him under. But life's pressure escalated quickly. One pivotal moment changed everything: his arrest. For a young man whose future was only beginning to take shape, the experience was jarring. Dreams that had seemed within reach suddenly felt distant, slipping further away with each passing day in the system. The world outside moved forward, but he was trapped in a space that didn't care about his talent, his vision, or his heart. Each day behind bars was a reminder of how fragile hope could be, and how easily the world could erase opportunity. Yet even in confinement, he wrote, pages of lyrics and reflections became his voice, a small rebellion against the circumstances trying to define him. When he finally regained freedom, the streets didn't simply welcome him back. they continued to hunt him like a shadow. Danger never fully left, and Snoop found himself constantly navigating threats that could have ended everything. Then came the storm that would define public perception for years: a murder trial. One accusation placed him squarely in the center of a legal nightmare, a trial that could have turned his life into a cautionary tale instead of a story of artistic triumph. This wasn't just about proving innocence, it was a fight for survival. Every word spoken, every action taken, carried monumental weight. The stakes were life or death, freedom or a permanent sentence behind bars. To the public, Snoop appeared fearless. On TV screens, in newspapers, and across media outlets, he projected confidence, charisma, and control. But inside, he lived in terror. Imagine waking up each day knowing that a single misstep, a single misjudgment, could erase everything: your family, your dreams, your chance at peace. That pressure was constant, unrelenting, and invisible to the world. The night before the verdict, it is said that he paced the floor for hours, sleepless, haunted by every possibility. There was no music to soothe him, no lyrics to armor him, only the raw, piercing fear of losing it all. When the court finally declared him not guilty, the world celebrated. Headlines shouted triumph, fans cheered, and peers offered congratulations. But for Snoop, relief was complicated. Freedom had been restored, but the experience left scars. He didn't feel entirely liberated. He felt hollowed, carrying with him the echoes of trauma that wouldn't simply fade. The danger may have been removed from the courtroom, but it had carved its mark into his psyche. Each threat that survived became a reminder that survival itself leaves traces, invisible to the outside eye but deeply felt by the soul. This is the part most people overlook. Surviving life-threatening situations doesn't mean the danger ever truly leaves. The lessons, fears, and memories cling to the heart, shaping choices, influencing art, and coloring interactions for years to come. Snoop Dogg's talent, his charm, his legendary calm, and his magnetic stage presence were forged in the fire of these experiences. What fans see as effortless confidence was built on nights of fear, hours of pacing, and a young man's struggle to keep hope alive when the odds were stacked against him. The victories celebrated by the world were shadowed by private moments of dread, introspection, and the burden of knowing just how close he had come to losing everything. Every lyric he wrote, every beat he dropped, and every performance he delivered carried this weight. It was both a burden and a gift. Pain transformed into artistry, trauma channeled into music, fear converted into rhythm. The streets that tried to break him ultimately taught him to endure, adapt, and create. And that duality, the public persona and the private struggle, defined the legend. Behind every confident smile, every smooth cadence, and every headline-grabbing success, there lies the story of a boy who grew up too fast, faced death in its many forms, and emerged not only to survive, but to create a legacy that could speak for him when words alone were not enough. Present-day tragedy and psychological breakdown. By the time Snoop Dogg entered his 50s, the world saw him as untouchable, a legend whose voice and persona seemed larger than life. They saw the confidence, the swagger, the smooth jokes, and the calm laughter that seemed effortless. To the public, he was the embodiment of cool, a man who had conquered the chaos of his youth and transformed it into fame, fortune, and artistic dominance. But behind the sunglasses, behind the smooth cadence and the public persona, a man was carrying a weight few could comprehend, a weight that didn't make headlines, didn't translate into awards, and certainly couldn't be shaken off with a catchy lyric or a studio session. The life that seemed enviable from the outside was, for Snoop, a complex labyrinth of anxiety, fear, and unspoken heartbreak. His daughter's health struggles became a crucible for his emotions. Watching a child fight for life is a pain unlike any other, a raw, primal kind of helplessness that gnaws at a parent's heart. For Snoop, there were countless nights spent quietly at her bedside, not as the celebrity the world adored, but as a father hoping, praying, and pleading for her strength. He watched, powerless, as doctors explained treatments, procedures, and potential outcomes, each conversation a reminder of how little control he had over something so sacred. The emotional toll was profound. The bravado that carried him through decades in the music industry could not shield him from the deep fear and sorrow of seeing a loved one suffer. There was a unique agony in feeling responsible for someone you cannot fully protect, a gnawing sense of inadequacy, despite his public image of invincibility. Snoop carried that pain every single day, tucked behind smiles and public appearances, invisible to all but the closest family and confidants. Then came the pressure of his son's life. Being Snoop Dogg's child is not just an identity, it is a constant shadow, a weight of expectation, legacy, and scrutiny. Every choice, every misstep, every achievement is magnified under the spotlight of the father's fame. Watching his son navigate the impossible standards of the world and the unique challenges that came with being the child of a living legend drained Snoop emotionally. He felt the impossibility of shielding his children completely, of preparing them for a world that judged them even before they could speak for themselves. The fear of failure, disappointment, or harm never truly left him. Every public outing, every private moment was colored by a father's instinct to protect, paired with the realization that some struggles are inevitable. His marriage, though filled with love, was not immune to the pressures of fame. High-profile relationships exist under constant observation, and the constant intrusion, gossip, and expectation can turn even the strongest bonds into tests of endurance. Intimate disagreements were amplified by public perception, private challenges were dissected by media speculation, and even moments of joy were punctuated by the knowledge that privacy was nearly impossible. Every romantic misstep, every argument, every difficult decision carried the added weight of the world watching. The love remained, but the strain became part of daily life. Another layer of emotional fatigue that Snoop bore silently. And slowly, quietly, the accumulation of stress, heartbreak, and responsibility began to break him. This wasn't the explosive breakdown of a celebrity scandal. It was the subtle, almost invisible erosion of resilience. Fatigue seeped into bones that had carried decades of performance, laughter, and hard work. Anxiety whispered in moments of solitude. Fear echoed in nights spent awake, and grief often arrived unannounced, a reminder of both past trauma and current responsibilities. And still, the cameras kept rolling. Interviews had to be conducted, shows had to be performed, music videos filmed, and appearances maintained. In public, he was Snoop Dogg, confident, relaxed, untouchable. In private, he often barely felt like Calvin Broadus, the boy from Long Beach who had survived violence, poverty, and betrayal, only to face new battles no one could prepare him for. Behind the laughter and casual jokes, some eyes had cried too often, windows to a pain carefully hidden from view. Behind the iconic persona was a heart that carried the weight of decades of trauma, fear, and parental responsibility. Behind every public smile was a man who had learned, sometimes painfully, that strength is not the absence of fear or grief, but the act of enduring it despite feeling fractured. Fame offered no immunity from human suffering. In fact, it often magnified it, layering expectation on top of loss, performance on top of heartbreak. Even as the world celebrated his successes and admired his cool, collected demeanor, Snoop Dogg navigated a complex, private reality. The pressures of fatherhood, the uncertainty of his daughter's health, the scrutiny of his son's upbringing, and the invisible strain on his marriage combined to form a psychological burden few could fully see. The man the public adored was, behind closed doors, a human being facing fragility, fatigue, and profound emotional challenges. This present-day tragedy is a stark reminder that even icons, even legends, are not exempt from suffering, that the courage to continue performing, loving, and existing in the face of persistent adversity is itself a heroic act. Snoop Dogg's story is not just about fame or music. It is about the invisible battles, the quiet endurance, and the heartbreak carried in private. The world sees a confident performer, a legend in his craft. But beneath the surface, there is a father, a husband, a man, wrestling daily with realities no amount of success can erase. It is this duality, the public triumphs and private trials, that defines the true human experience behind the music, the laughter, and the legend. Public image versus private pain. People often assume that fame shields a person from life's hardest realities. They see the wealth, the adoration, the awards, the red carpets, and assume that such success must insulate someone from heartbreak, from struggle, from pain. But in truth, fame can be the heaviest cage of all, a gilded prison that magnifies every fear, every loss, every insecurity. Snoop Dogg, with his unmistakable voice, effortless charisma, and cool demeanor, became a global icon, a symbol of laid-back confidence and creative mastery. Fans adored the jokes, the interviews, the playful banter, and the image of a man who seemed untouchable. Yet behind that carefully curated public persona lay layers of pain, grief, and emotional fatigue that no amount of applause could erase. The smiles he offered to the cameras often concealed nights of sleepless reflection, moments where memories of friends lost too soon weighed heavily on his mind. The laughter seen in magazines and interviews was a mask, a shield against the darkness that followed him from his youth in Long Beach to the present day. Snoop learned early that life does not pause for grief or heartbreak. People he grew up with vanished before their time, victims of violence, poverty, and circumstance. Those early losses left an indelible mark, shaping his understanding of life as fragile, fleeting, and often unfair. Fame did not remove that awareness. If anything, it amplified it. Each night in a luxury hotel or high-profile home was another night of silent reckoning. The world celebrated his success, but no one saw him lying awake, haunted by memories and questions, replaying moments he wished he could change, grieving people he could no longer reach. The more the public adored him, the greater the pressure to maintain an image of invulnerability. In order to survive, Snoop developed an incredible ability to compartmentalize. He had to smile when he didn't feel like smiling. He had to perform when his heart was tired. He had to appear strong, confident, and in control when inside he was breaking under the weight of his experiences. This dual existence, public confidence versus private struggle, became a constant in his life. He knew that if he allowed himself to fully feel, to pause and confront all the pain, he might falter in the eyes of the world. So he continued, balancing on the thin line between performance and survival, between being the icon the world adored and the human being his family and closest friends knew intimately. This constant tension between public image and private pain shaped Snoop's relationships and his inner life. To fans, he was a superstar, someone whose life seemed enviable, effortless, and fun. To those who knew him personally, he was a man fighting silent battles every day, navigating grief, loss, and the ongoing challenges of fame. Yet despite the intensity of his inner struggles, Snoop rarely complained. He did not seek sympathy, nor did he display his suffering openly. He understood that the world loved the persona, not the man behind it, and he made the conscious decision to protect both himself and the people around him by keeping his deepest pain private. One of the most profound lessons Snoop learned was how to carry grief as a constant companion. Losing people he loved, whether childhood friends or colleagues, did not become easier with time. Instead, he learned to coexist with the pain, to integrate it into his daily life without letting it destroy him. This adaptation is both tragic and remarkable. Tragic because it meant enduring emotional isolation. Remarkable because it demonstrates an extraordinary resilience and capacity to keep functioning despite profound heartache. In interviews, he has reflected that the most difficult part of fame is that it magnifies loss and amplifies expectations, leaving little room for emotional downtime or private mourning. Snoop's life became a lesson in walking with pain. The public saw only the humor, the charm, the stage presence. They did not witness the internal battles, the restless nights, the memories that returned unbidden. The weight of knowing that fame cannot erase grief, nor can it protect the people he loves from the harsh realities of life. The deepest tragedy of Snoop Dogg's existence is that he learned to normalize heartbreak, to function in the presence of constant emotional turbulence. He mastered the art of hiding it behind jokes, behind sunglasses, behind charisma, but never truly escaped it. And yet, there is a certain quiet heroism in this struggle. The world saw the success, the wealth, and the cultural influence. They celebrated the music, the awards, and the performances. Few understood that every lyric, every interview, every public appearance required him to summon a strength that went beyond physical stamina or artistic skill. It required emotional fortitude, a willingness to face loss, fear, and exhaustion, while still standing tall in front of millions. Snoop Dogg's journey reminds us that fame and adoration do not equate to immunity from suffering. They do not erase childhood trauma, the fear of losing loved ones, or the private grief that lingers long after the cameras stop rolling. The contrast between public image and private pain is what makes Snoop's story so profoundly human. It teaches that even the most admired, the most seemingly untouchable figures carry burdens invisible to the world. It reveals that resilience is not the absence of suffering, but the courage to endure it daily, quietly, without recognition. In embracing this paradox, Snoop Dogg exemplifies both the brilliance and the vulnerability of a life lived under relentless scrutiny, a life where public triumph and private tragedy coexist, shaping the man behind the legend, the man behind the legend. At 54, Snoop Dogg stands not only as a cultural icon, but as a living testament to resilience. To the world, he is a legend, a name that echoes across generations, a voice that shaped music, fashion, and pop culture. Millions recognize the laid-back swagger, the effortless charm, the persona that made him the coolest man alive. Yet behind the fame, the accolades, and the bright lights is a man still grappling with the weight of his journey. A man who, despite surviving the harshest streets, the pressures of superstardom, and trials that could have broken anyone, carries scars that no audience ever sees. The physical dangers of youth, the scrutiny of fame, and the personal tragedies he endured left an emotional imprint that only time and reflection can begin to soothe. Today, Snoop is quieter, more contemplative, a far cry from the bold, fearless image that fans have adored for decades. His priorities have shifted. Family has become a sanctuary, a source of grounding, strength, and purpose. He spends hours with his children, watching them grow, guiding them, and trying to shield them from the world's harsh realities, even as he still carries memories of his own turbulent upbringing. Prayer, meditation, and personal reflection have become daily rituals, offering moments of calm in a life that once never paused. The emotional cost of his fame and experiences has not vanished. Each memory of loss, each challenge he survived, has left traces, subtle yet persistent, shaping his worldview and his approach to life. Strength, Snoop has learned, is not about masking pain or projecting invincibility. It is about confronting vulnerability, embracing it, and finding ways to continue moving forward despite it. His evolution is evident. The man who once relied on bravado now seeks healing, understanding, and emotional growth. Snoop Dogg's story is not one of failure. It is a story of survival, of courage, and of love that endures despite hardship. It is the story of a man who walked through fire and emerged with a heart capable of compassion, wisdom, and devotion. Beyond the music, the fame, and the public persona, he is a father, a grandfather, and a man learning that true legacy is not built on accolades alone, but on the capacity to endure, reflect, and grow. Snoop Dogg remains a legend, but behind that legend is a man, human and evolving, carrying lessons learned through pain and triumph alike. At 54, Snoop Dogg remains one of the strongest men in the world, not because he's famous, but because he survived what most people never could. Behind the music is a lifetime of battles. Behind the smile is a history of heartbreak. And behind the legend is a man who kept going when life gave him every reason to stop. If his story teaches anything, it's this: even the strongest people carry pain you will never see. And sometimes, the most heartbreaking stories are the ones we thought were glamorous. Thank you for watching this deep look into the real Snoop Dogg, beyond the fame, beyond the image, beyond the legend. If you want more powerful, emotional stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Your support helps us bring more real stories to light, and stay with us because more untold truths are coming soon.